welcome along to the Rock and Goal podcast, the official podcast of Dumbarton Football Club. Today we've got a shorter than usual end of season podcast, looking back on the final few games of the season and that night at Galabank. Now, we were recording this before what could be the greatest sporting comeback of all time. I was sitting in the car coming down the road thinking of anything comparable, and I really don't think there is anything comparable to coming back from a 6-0 deficit. If you are listening to this and Dumbarton have won by 7-6, then you likely won't hear from us in a podcast for a few months, because we'll still be getting over it. Today I am joined by Chris McMillan, who thankfully wasn't at Galabank on Tuesday night, but unfortunately for him has subjected himself to the highlights.
Both sets of highlights as well, so I watched the full highlights and then the sort of film noir style goal cam ones that they put out in before it. So
I did like the kind of dual aspect angle of that. I mean, there was bits of the goal cam highlights where it was so dark that you couldn't see a single thing in it, which I didn't really understand. I don't know if that was an artistic creative technique or if it was just a wee bit of an accident, but I think there was quite a few Suns fans, myself included, who wished it was that dark and they couldn't have seen what had unfolded in front of their eyes, because
you need some Peterhead style fog.
You know, it was funny. I was stood behind the goal where Annan were shooting into in the second half, and there was a few Suns fans heading for the exit, about 10 minutes to go or something. There's a guy just going, "These floodlights, they aren't looking up to scratch. I'd just call it off, ref," every time the ref came over to the corner, which I quite liked. But yeah, going all Frank Lampard on that transition there. But, you know, seriously, it was a really dark evening to be a Suns fan. It was I was driving down the road with myself, and it was like a lovely day for it, cracking night for it. Thought we've got a pretty much full strength squad available.
You always have that excitement before the playoffs, no matter how you've ended the season. You go in on that first game and you think, well, you know, why not? What if, right?
Exactly, and it's a ground where Suns fans have great memories from winning the league back in 2009, and I don't think on paper there's an awful lot between the squads. I think Annan are stronger going forward. I think Dumbarton are stronger at the back. Some Annan fans are going to have a chuckle about that one. On paper, I looked at it and thought this could be a real... I think I put in Pie and Bovril, actually. This could be a really good game. Both teams were looking pretty much at full strength. You've got, probably the division's best centre forward, if you will, in Tommy Goss, up against Gregor Buchanan, who was in PFA Team of the Year, so the division's best centre half against best centre forward. You've got, for my money, the division's best goalkeeper up against an Annan team that score goals for fun. It felt like there was quite interesting matchups all over the park.
In the middle of the park as well.
Yeah, you've got Rhys Lyon,
he was in the Team of the Year,
who I think is a phenomenal player. I've got, or I'm due to be on a rival podcast, which I cannot name, this week, which has a top 12 rundown of lower league players. If you're listening, you might have a clue what this is about. I may be getting subbed in for Danny Denham, which could be one of the greatest moments of my life.
The only time you're getting subbed on for him.
And I was thinking, when you get asked to do these things, you lie in bed and you think about who you're going to have in your top 12. And Rhys Lyon was one of the first names that came into my head. And he's a player that I really enjoy watching play. I think he's so dominant in midfield when he's playing well. And I can't understand why Morton deemed him not good enough.
Yeah, I was just going to say that as well. Yeah,
he's a really good player. So I was going into it thinking this could be a cracking game. And if you're an Annan fan, it was a cracking game. If you're anyone else, it looked like two sides from different divisions. I mean, I've seen Suns beaten quite heavily by Rangers. Seen Suns beaten 6-0 by Rangers here. Been beaten 5-1 by Hearts here. There's been a few heavy defeats to clubs that you would say, although we shared the division with them, we're kind of out of that league. Dumbarton aren't the same level as Rangers, as Hearts, as Hibs, or whoever. I don't think any of them outperformed Dumbarton in the way that Annan did the other night. That was 6-0, that could have been 8, 9, 10. There was stages where Annan almost took a breather and just toyed with Suns. And look, there was obviously slight mitigating circumstances with Calvin Orsay's red card after 20 odd minutes. That's not going to help. When you're 2-0 down and go down to 10 men, you're always going to be facing an uphill battle. But
your most creative player as well.
Yeah,
assist leader in the season.
Biggest threat probably down that
guy you need
right-hand
on the
side,
pitch,
and someone who provides an outlet as well when you're under pressure, because he'll just run with the ball. And yeah, that had an impact. But from the first 2 or 3 minutes, Annan looked more up for it. They looked like a team. Now I know we were going to mention it. Suns are on a run of 2 wins in their last 10 games now. Annan looked like a team you would expect to be in the playoffs. Dumbarton looked like a team from the last season's position where they were in the playoffs to survive, not to go up, and they didn't look confident. It's harsh to say they didn't look like they wanted to be there, but Annan, I got a feeling just from watching Annan in those first 5 minutes, like those players were really fancying that game. They were really enjoying it. It was a perfect night at home. They're in reasonably decent form, although not an awful lot better form than Dumbarton. They didn't finish the season in scintillating form or anything, but those were players who I looked at and thought, like, if I was around you, if I was in your squad, like, I'd be feeling confident with the way you're knocking the ball about.
So you brought up a couple of things that I wanted to get into there, but the last one there, just they're not in particularly sparkling form at the end of the season, and I can maybe see that, excitement, maybe a squad being galvanised, maybe have you just sneaked into the playoffs on the last day, or and it just maybe feels like a bit more of a bonus, bit more of a free hit. Annan weren't in that position. They've known for a little while, and the form tailing off hasn't really been an issue, but I don't know, again, I've only seen the highlights, but they seem to play like you're backing up with the hunger of that type of team. Another one you mentioned after a couple of minutes that you noticed. Now, I was going to ask after which goal did you notice, but it sounds like you noticed before the first goal.
Yeah, I think Annan came close before the first goal. Then they got the first goal, and I was already going, this could be a long night. Now, to be fair, should have been level. Finlay Gray hit the post, the ball bounced back out. I think it was Tommy Muir. Anyway, it hit an Annan defender's arm. It could have been a penalty. If that goes in, and I know it sounds ridiculous to say it's 6-0, but if that goes in after Annan's really good start, they might think, oh man, like, we've dominated this game, we look miles ahead, and now it's only 1-0. Maybe that could have changed something. But after that first goal went in, I thought, I got flashbacks to the 3-1 game about a month or so ago, where it felt like it was just as many as Annan wanted. And like what I would say, although this is obviously a Dumbarton podcast, so we'll focus on things from the Sun's point of view. From an Annan point of view, and it might be something that I'll say to Peter Murphy today and just ask him about, I think that was almost the perfect performance. I genuinely don't think you could ask any more from them. They scored 6 goals. None of them were absolute screamers. They were all just, well, a few were maybe a bit scrappy, but they were, like, from a manager's point of view, they were well-worked goals. They didn't really give Dumbarton much of a sniff at the back. The one that hit the post, Russell McLean had a chance one-on-one that was well saved by Greg Fleming. That was about it.
Even though it was scrappy, it felt like, even just from the highlights, it felt like they were just in Sun's 18-yard box, like, constantly.
Yeah.
Just like bodies and bodies just right in front of the 6-yard box, just like crowding out, just like pressure on the goalkeeper, and it's paid off.
I think all 6 goals, maybe, no actually, with the exception of Dominic Doherty's, which I think was just inside the box, I think all or 5 of the 6 goals came from inside the 6-yard box, or certainly no more than the penalty spot, yards out. That's defensively horrendous. But you're doing something right if you're working those balls into the area. And they had Willie Gibson down the right was phenomenal. Like, I'd messaged him on Twitter and said I can't believe that you're 38. I pointed out to my dad, and he was like, oh, is that Willie Gibson? He looks younger now than they did when he played for us. And he does. He's got an unbelievable engine. You know the quality he's got being able to cross the ball in. Down the other side, Max Kilsby had a really good game. Chris Johnson had a really good game. And it was, this sounds like it's been disrespectful, but it was like really simple. Take on your man, get beyond him, get a quality delivery in, and when you've got Gosh, you've got Aidan Smith kicking about in the middle of the box, that's going to be a recipe for success. And it was just, they did the basics absolutely spot on. And see if again, it's maybe not the right thing to say, but see if you detach yourself from it being Dumbarton, you take a step back, you think, I've enjoyed watching Annan play. Like, I would love to see us putting in a performance like that. As a fan, you just go, yeah, like that's been a superb day out.
And at this level, you talk about the deliveries, and if the deliveries are that good, then you're giving yourself such a good opportunity to find the back of the net. Like, I look at the first one in particular, I think it's Doherty that puts the ball in. It's just a wonderful ball. And if you put a ball into any top scorer in any division anywhere, like,
it's only there's a reason that Tommy Goss has 28. I think he got 28. Credited with Max Kilsby's goal, but it definitely was Max Kilsby's goal. But I think he's got 28 goals to his name. Like, you don't score 28 goals on your own.
No.
Like, you are relying on quality coming in. Like, strikers are only as good as the service they get. And you could have the best, you could put Tommy Goss up front in, trying to think of who the lowest scorers in the division are, maybe Bonnyrigg. And if he's not getting the quality that he's getting from Gibson and Kilsby and Johnson and Wallace and Doherty and whoever else, like, he's not scoring 28 goals.
No.
But he's got those players around him who play to his strengths, and they go, like, they know what he's good at.
Yeah, the confidence works both ways. If you've got the confidence knowing that if you're in the right place, the right ball's going to come in, and then someone in that situation like Doherty, the ball comes back and he knows, he doesn't even need to look.
No.
You just know, right, I need to get a good connection on this. I need to put it into an area. Tommy's going to be there, and chances are he's going to net. And that's just what happened. And I just wanted to touch on what you said about the Murphy and just like the perfect performance. So I was looking into it last night until actually quite late. But it's actually his 250th game in charge today. And that 6-0 equals the best result he's had in charge. So it literally is pretty much the perfect result for him.
Yeah, and I'm doing today's game for a couple of papers, and it's going to be one of those ones where I'm doing post-match for both teams. So I'm absolutely going to ask him that, because I think, he'd have been driving, I think he lives in Carlisle, so driving up to the game, he wouldn't have envisaged...
Cycle, no?
He wouldn't have envisaged a 6-0. Like, at no moment in his mind, I don't think, he can correct me, he can get in touch with me and correct me if he's wrong, and was like, Fraser, I was really confident it was going to be 6-0. But I think he'd have been driving up there going, if we played the best of our abilities, 3-0 for the second leg, bite your hand off for that. And it just clicked perfectly for them. Yeah,
it was one of those games where probably all of your players are playing a Champman 10, and when that's happening, you look at the opposition and it's just, there's quite a lot of 3s, 4s, 5s dotted around, maybe even worse.
Everything's red on Football Manager.
That was exactly what I was going for, yeah. And you almost, like, as the opposing manager, when you're playing that game, get a little bit extra enjoyment out of the absolute battering that you're dishing out by looking, yeah, he is having an absolute shocker.
Yeah.
And then you get asked the question in the press conference, and it says, does that person who had such a bad game, does that show that you knew you were doing? And you're like, no, I wasn't focused on that, no.
And it's one screen you've been looking at in the whole game. But no, from a Sun's point of view, I mean, there's only so much that you can say about it. And what I find bizarre about this Dumbarton team, so I was in, the day after the game, I was in getting my hair cut. I was talking to my barber about it, and he was obviously, he was saying, how's it going, how's football, like how are Dumbarton getting on and all that kind of stuff. And I said, we got beaten 6-0 in the playoffs last night. And I kind of did the big build up to it, and I said, and we lost 6-0. And he was like, so is it just like you can't defend? And I'm like, well, here's the weird thing. This is a club record number of clean sheets.
I've had this conversation
with so many people. Club record number of clean sheets. I think only Joe Hart and Dennis Mehmet maybe have more clean sheets than Brett Long this season or something.
I think it's Mehmet as an individual.
So the only one with more clean sheets, which is incredible. Yet this season Dumbarton have lost 6-0 twice, 7-0 and 5-1 to an Albion Rovers team who finished bottom of the league.
Yeah, so here you go. I've got that exactly for you. You've teed me right up.
This is the Doherty to Goss interplay, by the way.
Third time Long has conceded 5 or more this season against Annan, Stirling and Albion Rovers. So they've conceded 43 goals if you include the league and Tuesday night. 17 of those in 3 games, which is like nearly 40%.
It's bizarre, and it's something, I mean, I don't know, maybe Stevie Farrell will know the reason, maybe players will know the reason.
That's not including the Rangers game. I want to say Harry Brown was in goal for that. I don't think that's fair, but that statistic would be far more eye-opening if you included that. But just from, and I'm not pointing any fingers at Brett Long here. I'm with you. I think he's had an outstanding season, and especially when you look at the, no disrespect to certain, like the quality of goalkeeper since we've been doing this hasn't been particularly high. And Brett Long, maybe that's made him look a little touch better. But the statistics, the numbers are backing him up. So
yeah, and
maybe just not this one.
Like if it wasn't for Brett on Tuesday night, that would have been touching double figures. I genuinely believe that. I mean, I think
that's not the first time you said that this season.
No, I think they had 12 shots on target and scored 6. So you're looking at him making 6 saves, and one of those saves, granted, ended up in, I think it was Benji Lusant's goal. The last one, it kind of claws a header away, and then Lusant's there to follow it up.
It's a really decent stop as well. It's one of those ones where I think some people would look at that save in particular and just go, he's got to palm that away, but it's just, what can you do?
It's so close. It's so close. He does well to get anything on it. He had a couple in the first half, I think, denied Aidan Smith, like a really sort of brave low save. And if it hadn't been for Brett, that would have been more. But the thing I can't get my head around is you're either a good team defensively or you're not. In the same way as you're either a good team offensively or you're not. You might have a game where it's blunted. So I would say, based statistically this season, Annan are a very good team offensively, not as good a team defensively. Now obviously they're still going to get clean sheets and they're still going to have games where they defend well, and they're still going to have games where they don't score goals. But with Suns, it feels so severe. Like, I can't remember, in all my years of watching football, which makes me sound a lot older than I am, but, you'll come up against teams where you go, this team's pretty good going forward, this team's pretty good defensively. I can't remember one who can rack up clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet, but also is equally as likely to just get beaten by 5 or 6 goals.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Severe is a really, really good word to describe it, and yeah, I completely agree. It's all almost been borderline odd at times this season. It feels like this is a team that can, they've got quite a compact shape. They can like grind results out. They can grind teams down. They can win by the odd goal. Yeah, but then the Jekyll and Hyde of this team, right? So and the worst side of it is just complete and utter capitulation and just shipping goals. And yeah, maybe the 6-0, it's not really acceptable in any situation for any of the players, I would imagine, or the manager or anyone involved who had to go through that and be on the pitch. But maybe it wouldn't seem as bad if it was this isolated incident.
Yeah. Like, see the Stirling Albion 6-0, I think, so the Rangers one, kind of irrelevant because it was like a fringe team there full time and nobody cared. But
I think some people did.
Some people might have cared. Most people didn't care.
They're not listening, they're busy today, so.
Yeah, nobody cared. They didn't even know that game was on because they have their first team to follow, so why would you care how your reserves are getting on? But anyway, that's a discussion for another podcast. The Stirling Albion game, I think at the time everyone panicked, and then I think the next 3 games were followed up with more defensively resolute performances, and you go, you know what, it's a blip. It's just, I think Suns lost 4 or 5 goals from corners that day. You go, that's fine, just write it off, that was a bad day at the office.
And it's something to see, it's something to target from a defensive perspective as well.
Yeah, so that's fine, write that one off. And then it was fine defensively. Suns might have lost a few more games after the turn of the year, but they weren't defensively shipping goals until that Albion Rovers game. But you can maybe write that one off as well and go, look, Albion Rovers scored 3 of the best goals I think we've seen here this season in that game. Like, they were absolutely excellent that day.
That was the best attacking performance I've seen from away side this year.
Yeah, and they, Charlie Riley and Joe Bevan in particular, I mean, it was a good performance all over the park, but Riley and Bevan were unplayable that day. You almost go, right, okay, dreadful result, dreadful performance, but they've hit some absolutely screaming goals in that one. So as long as we see a response, we did see a response. Suns had 3 consecutive clean sheets, Stirling Albion, Bonnyrigg and East Fife towards the end of this league season. You go, right, that's fine. Things are back where they should be defensively now. And then that happens out of the blue. And that's the bit that must be so difficult. I mean, it's difficult for me as a fan to understand, and it must be so difficult for Stevie Farrell to work on, because you never know when this is coming. But you kind of know that it's coming. Yeah, you just sense that there's always the risk that it's there. I don't know if it's losing an early goal. I don't know if it's that away teams have cottoned on and are targeting a certain area or targeting a certain thing.
I certainly don't think Albion Rovers were doing that.
No.
That Albion Rovers defeat certainly felt different in comparison to Tuesday night and the Stirling Albion, the first Stirling Albion game. That felt different. They were ridiculous. They were just... They weren't swinging in crosses and scoring from multiple set pieces. Yeah. But
would you like to guess where, assuming that Suns don't pull off a miraculous comeback, would you like to guess where I'll be spending next Saturday?
Go on.
Clifton Hill.
Oh, really?
Because what team would you not... I really want to watch Albion Rovers play. I really want to see Joe Bevan and Charlie Riley play, and it'll be the last game Riley plays for them.
Yeah.
I really... this is the official podcast of Dumbarton Football Club, so we don't have anything nasty to say about our friends at the Spartans, but Dumbarton and Albion Rovers have always been kind of quite closely matched. There's a lot of players, managers who've gone between it. Suns obviously ground shared at Clifton Hill for half a season before in here was built. I have a massive soft spot for Albion Rovers, and I am, again, no offence intended at all to any Spartans fans who may be tuning in. I really hope Albion Rovers stay up, and I want to be part of it if they do, and I want to see them play. I want to see this squad play one last time for them, because I think they're a good team, and it blows my mind that they finished bottom of the league, and I think everyone said that they're bottom of the league for a reason. You're bottom of the league after 36 games because you're the worst team in it, but I haven't seen that from them. No,
I feel like I saw worse performances from sides in the division above in the last couple of seasons, I must say.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that the first time I've watched a team week in, week out in League 2, and the quality did surprise me, I must say.
Yeah.
You know, the likes of Albion Rovers. You know, I'm basing this off games here, of course. Elgin City, both teams that have won here. You know, just teams down at the bottom of the pyramid, and you know they can play football. And
I also think that maybe there's a bigger gap between non-league football and league football than I think people realise. And you'll get a lot of people being like, oh, you know, I saw somebody describing Albion Rovers as Deadwood on Pie and Bovril, which I think is really unfair. This is the first time they finished bottom of the league in a very, very long time. They won the title under Darren Young in League 2 a few seasons ago. Like, Albion Rovers have had really good teams in recent years, and I don't think that's accurate at all.
And that press release, you know.
Yeah. I don't think that's accurate at all to call them Deadwood. And I think Bonnyrigg found out this year that, you know, an excellent Lowland League team, they were almost an experiment of taking the Lowland League champions, not changing very much at all, putting them into the league, and it's not worked. And they had to go out and they had to bring in a few players. I think they brought in Paddy Martin in goals, a huge upgrade on the players that they had previously in goals, and he's really helped bring them on a wee bit. They just brought in a wee bit extra quality, like Kieran Mitchell on loan from Wraith, who was there for the season. Bonnyrigg were really one-paced without him, and you maybe get away with that at a lower level, where if you've got a wee bit of ability, that covers the lack of pace. At this level, it's just a little bit quicker. And I think he says 2 hours before kick-off in the Albion Rovers against Spartans game, but I think Albion Rovers will again prove that there is a big gap between top end of the Lowland League, and I would include the West and East of Scotland League in that, because West and East of Scotland League probably have greater strength and depth than the Lowland League, and there is a big gap up to League 2, and it's maybe something that's a bit sobering for Dumbarton being back in this league. Like, in the olden days, again, there's me sounding really old.
The olden days.
when I was a boy, when I was growing up, there was like an absolutely howling team at the bottom of the league. There was a dreadful Stirlingshire for a few years. There was a horrendous Elgin City team. And Berwick Rangers, when they went down a few years ago, absolutely awful. Like, probably one of the worst teams that have played league football in the last 50 years. Like, an atrocious gang. And now it doesn't feel like there is that. Like, you would look at most teams in this league and say there isn't a great deal between Stirling Albion at the top and Albion Rovers at the bottom. Obviously, there's a massive points chasm, but was Albion Rovers beating Stirling Albion as much of a shock as that dreadful Berwick team beating Peterhead when they were kind of up the top end a few years ago?
Just going to tell you that's other 6-0 victory for Murphy's Annan.
Was it against Berwick?
It was.
Was it? I wonder if it was Johnny Harvey's Berwick. He used to tune in for his post-match because they were absolutely explosive. And that was actually, Johnny Harvey, I'm sure, replaced Robbie Horn, who's the Bonnyrigg manager. So I think Robbie Horn will have learnt from that as well. That was the season. Not to go on about Albion Rovers, because this podcast does go on about Albion Rovers a fair whack.
You're certainly talking me into coming to Clifton Hill, though, almost.
Well, if you fancy it, you know. Hopefully the weather's like
well, it's actually, you know, provided we don't see the miraculous comeback. I think there was due to be a game on the Tuesday night, in that case, wasn't there?
There would have been. It would have been Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah, that's right. So it's my mum's birthday on Tuesday, so yeah. So I was gonna have to say no. We'll need to do it another night, but
oh well, at least somebody was thoughtful about it.
Cheers, lads.
Yeah, that Berwick team had the Albion Rovers team that John Brogan started with at the start of the season. We went to see them against Partick Thistle actually, and he just put together this ragtag bunch of like junior players because he didn't think there was a massive step up, and found out very, very quickly that there was a massive step up, and Kevin Harper had to come in and sort of basically rescued their season. It was a miraculous escape, and Berwick got caught out, and that was 2 really bad teams at the bottom of the league this season. I would say there's not. I think Stirling Albion are obviously the best team in the league, like no doubts about that. But I wouldn't say there was a standout runaway champion like there has been, you know, with Kelty and McQueen's Park and whoever. And I also wouldn't say there was a standout bad team. I think this league, and looking ahead to next season, I expect it to be the same. Like, there's not an awful lot between the teams in this league, and without wanting to sound like every manager pre-season, like, anybody can beat anybody in their day.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And I've said it already about Stirling Albion. Yes, they're champions, they're deserved champions. There's no denying that whatsoever. But yeah, they've not been blowing teams away. They've just not been losing.
Yeah,
and that's fine. And that's worked for them. That is eventually how they've overturned this massive swing. I mean, they've still not been beaten since 3rd of December, I think it was.
Apart from that loss in the last day at Clifton Hill.
When
the league was already sewn up.
Yes,
so
that's
it's not
it.
important
Yeah,
at that stage.
of course. I forgot about that.
But you look at the teams that they lost to, so that loss in December was Stranraer. They lost to Bonnyrigg. They lost to Suns on the opening day. They lost to Albion Rovers. I think is that it? They only lose 4 or 5 games this season. It was certainly they lost to Annan. I think that's the only five games that they've lost this season. I have off the top of my head. And
excuse the noise of the paper turning.
If I've remembered that, that's pretty
5. Yeah, that's
pretty
right.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's the 5 games they lost. So the games they lost, 3 of the games they lost were against, inverted commas, the strugglers, like the teams you would maybe expect them to beat. And I know the Bonnyrigg game was at the start of the season and they were on a real high at that point, but like that shows there isn't a great deal between it. And like you said, there's one of the big reasons why Stirling Albion won the league is that they refused to get beaten in games. And I think it's going to be the same next year, that it's not going to be, you know, I don't expect to see, unless somebody rich comes in and takes over Forfar, takes over Suns, takes over Elgin or whatever. I
wondered whether you were going to throw Suns in there.
You know, if there's any Saudi princes listening who might have a spare 100 million rattling about and fancy it, then...
Well, the sale's not gone through, but he might be looking for maybe a slightly lower key club to get involved with.
Any Hollywood actors who fancy it, you know, it's a great location to shoot a film in.
Oh, but it can't be an actor, the height and fame of Reynolds, surely.
It doesn't have to be at Scottish League 2, so it could be some guy who was a background extra in like a James Bond film 15 years ago.
Martin Compston about, or
yeah, get somebody roped in. But no, I don't see any team running away with the league next year, and that's a great thing from one point of view, because it's a great thing from Dumbarton's point of view that once again should be a fairly open league, and that league's there to be attacked. But it's also one where you have to be looking over your shoulder, because I don't think there's going to be an awful lot between the teams whatsoever. We obviously don't know whether it will be Annan or Clyde in the league next year. I would suspect that if Annan go up, that Clyde will be weaker than Annan would be.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
At this very early stage in the season. I have no idea.
And we don't know if Duffy would stay or...
No. And I don't know what Peterhead will look like. They come off the back of a horrendous season where they basically just signed about 4 different squads of players and none of them were any good. So they've got big work to do, but you would expect that Peterhead will be reasonably good, but I don't expect them to be like the Jim McInally Peterhead of old with Rory McAllister up front, with Greg Fleming in goals and guys like that. Which means, I mean, we're already previewing next season, which is maybe a podcast for 6 weeks down the line when we know what squads look like. But it feels like already it's going to be another very close season, and it feels like maybe this year was a bit of an opportunity missed for Suns, but next year might present the same sort of opportunity if they can work on the issues this year. A wee bit more consistency, particularly defensively, and a bit more going forward.
And that's all you can do, is you've got to learn from what has gone wrong this season. And yeah, it will be a division that will be a lot tighter. There will be another opportunity. If this season is a missed opportunity, I think there will be another opportunity. There's obviously, not everyone's favourite plans, but there are plans in place. Players are here for next season. There is a system that has been played that has worked at times, but there is going to be another opportunity. You've got to learn from your mistakes. I was going to say the old cliche, you want to try and turn some of those draws, some of those defeats into draws, but some of those defeats are 5-1, 6-0. So
that's
you don't want to be drawing 6-6, but
maybe
you do. I suppose you do. Yeah.
To watch, but it get replayed on Sky Sports like every 14 days, like they do with that Motherwell 6 Hibs 6 game that I still watch on YouTube quite often. Yeah,
they constantly put on the Swindon 5 Sheffield United 5 playoff semi-second leg, like it was some miraculous, incredible game, but the reality is we were 3-0 down after 15 minutes, so 5-1 down on aggregate. So we're constantly chasing the game. We're just like, oh, what an amazing game, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful.
Well, I was going to say maybe we'll get something similar today, because just before we kind of hang up, and this is going to be pointless to everyone listening, but I wonder how Stevie Farrell approaches it today.
That's a big question.
So by the time you're listening to this, you'll know, do you go out and you go, right, well, the only way Suns go through is if they score 6 goals in normal time. See if they concede a goal. It doesn't really matter. Do you just go, I don't know if this will be beeped out, do you just go balls out and just throw everything at it going forward? Or Suns haven't beaten a team 6-0 since, Chris's point about, is it
I was just going to ask
2011 and beaten East 5 6-0?
It is.
And Brian Prunty scored 4.
When was the last time they won 6-0 at home?
Elgin 2009.
This guy, man.
Derek Harcray scored 4.
This guy. I've not written down all the goal scorers because I've had limited space. Right, okay, go on then. you've got those two. The other ones I've got, I'm going to waste these. I was going to use these during the game, but I'll get the reaction from either way. Suns have scored 7 or more 10 times in their history, and the last time was December the 18th, 1971, against Alloa, and it was 7-1 at home.
That would have been the iconic 71-72 squad as well. The Kenny Wilson 40-odd goals.
And the incredible thing is that would only take it to extra time. And the last 7-0 win that would win the tie was in the same year. Where is it? I've got it here. I've just lost my eyes. Yeah, April 71 at home to Stirling Albion.
So what we're saying is that if Suns could simply find a way to make Kenny Wilson about 50 years younger, they might have a chance today.
There's always a chance, Fraser. There's always a chance. There's always a chance. But yes, they're going to need to rewrite history for the second time this season as well, obviously, after the record-breaking start. Could there be a record-breaking end, Fraser Clark?
It wouldn't be the end if it was record-breaking.
Oh! That's where you should have picked up the mic and dropped it.
I know, that felt like a great place to end. Thank you to everyone who has joined us over the course of the season. We're sorry this one is only a wee bit shorter. We'll hopefully have a few things planned over pre-season to keep us in shape.
Wait. You don't want to talk about Dumbarton 1, Stranraer 1?
No.
Oh.
And you know what I particularly don't want to talk about was Dumbarton 1, East Fife 0, because John Gemmell was stood beside me just complaining about how poor a game it was. And I feel like the big man wouldn't appreciate me saying that he was basically not having a very nice time watching it. And yeah, it was a really poor game of football, that one.
No, I wasn't having I was having a nice time at Wembley until the game started. In fact, no, until the penalty. I was having a nice time. And
then it kind of went downhill a wee bit.
And then it was just like, Partridge shrugged. Just
well, what can you do? How was Wembley? How did it compare to here?
Surface is decent. Yeah, even. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Listen.
Just like here, then.
I'm gonna throw in a sly dig to Jack here because he's not here, and I heard what he said. He's been to Wembley before. Yeah, I've been 3 times, 4 times. I lost count.
Lost count.
Yeah. Never won. So he's been once and won. Fine, whatever. But very good. Well done. But the one thing that I did find quite interesting, based on that, is anytime I've been to Wembley before, so been playoff final in 2012 against Huddersfield.
The Steve Simonson game. Was that?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so yeah, this is my 4th time, Jack.
If you're listening on Spotify, Jack, Chris has just pointed and looked right down the barrel of the lens of the camera.
2009 playoff final against Burnley under Owen Coyle.
Yeah.
And Stephen Thompson played, actually.
You still have to have a go at Owen Coyle about that game, don't you?
Yeah, I've not had the chance, but
you
said he's a pretty lovely guy, so it's just a bit like
one of the nicest men that I've ever spoken to.
Because I think he actually might have said at the time that they weren't expecting to. Anyway, but so yeah, Burnley, Huddersfield, Hull City in the FA Cup semi-final in 2014. But the point being, it's always been against the team in the playoffs where there's so much riding on it. The team, the fans are so excited, and it's sort of like do or die. See, against Manchester City, against a set of fans that they scored, and they were just like, all right, yeah, good. I was like, oh, this is awful. Like, I actually thought it would be worse when you hear like the sort of wall of noise hit you. Like the one when Burnley scored was particularly harrowing. I can still feel the hot air hitting me in the face. But I actually thought that was worse, and it's not. The complete like elite club like apathy is way worse.
This is not something that I expect us to talk about in the podcast. It reminds me of me going off on one about Edinburgh City and saying that my beef is not with Edinburgh City but with the people of Edinburgh, which seems like a nice place to end this podcast.
Yeah, but Wembley is nice, but I mean, this is where
it's really at.
Aye.
Like, you don't have to pay 15 quid for like some chips here.
I didn't even look at the price of any of that at all. Nothing.
Probably for the safest.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I said, we will be back at some point over the summer, we hope, assuming we get thrown new contracts. But, that's still up in the air. We've got to go into the office and see if Sean sits us down and assesses our performances over the course of the year and lets us know if we're worthy of one.
Open to negotiation.
Yeah, someone else might come in as well.
Oh,
We could issue a come and get me plea, put in a transfer request and move to Albion Rovers.
You're doing your very, very best to tout yourself. I don't know about me, but yeah.
Maybe Albion Rovers will get taken over by a Saudi prince, and then he'll just employ the two of us to like bum them up.
Sure.
Anyway, this has gone off on a tangent.
Is that what you want?
I better stop talking. Maybe a Hollywood actor rather than a Saudi prince. It might be more ethical. This has gone off on a really strange tangent I wasn't expecting, so we will stop talking before it gets really, really weird, and we'll just have that conversation off mic. But thank you to everyone who's listened. Thank you to everyone who said nice things about us this year.
Yeah, I would just like to really echo that. We've had a few people come up to us and just say how much they appreciate the work that we've done in the commentary and just the podcast and stuff. And honestly, it's an absolute pleasure. I love doing it, and it means a lot. It really does.
Only club you've wanted to podcast for and all that.
Yeah.
Thank you to Sean for all the work he does. He'll probably edit this bit out, but thank you to Sean for all the work he does getting this up and running, because literally without him we would not be here. Like, there would be none of this. We don't know how it's worked, and he just, you know where he pitched it to me? Clifton Hill. Good things always happen at Clifton Hill. He asked me about it at Clifton Hill back in August, and we got it off and running, obviously. We hope that you don't mind us rambling on a wee bit more personally this time. Probably better than talking about the football anyway.
And thank you to all the guests as well. They've made it what it is as well. So,
and if there's anyone you want to see us get on, or if you're listening and you want to come on, give us a shout, because we're always happy to have people on.
Owen Coyle.
That you can be our number one target over the summer. I'm pretty sure that Owen Coyle would do it if it didn't clash with the Queen's match day. So Owen, if you are listening, you've got my number. Give me a shout. Come on in. Thank you to everyone else for listening. Unless you're Owen Coyle, in which case give us a shout.
Thank you very much.